Hello, Strasbourg and others watching this daily devotion today. It is Wednesday, August 12th, 2020. I can't believe I have been doing this for nearly 4 months. Daily devotions, and I'm not sure how many people are watching because I don't count anymore. I don't look at the daily views. But I am hoping that those of you who are watching this are still gaining some hope and peace amidst these times of coronavirus. Now, my mom and I have been sharing Stephen King books and our love of his writing for many years. I think I read my first Stephen King book when I was about 10 or 11 years old, and I've never looked back. And somehow I've become the repository of every book that we have bought. And whenever she comes by for Christmas or Thanksgiving, we'll pick up a few books and bring back some more. And we try to buy the new books when they come out for each other in hardback. And so we have a nice collection. And I was reading one of his short stories in his most recent collection that was put out. And there is one story in there, and I'm not going to ruin it. There's one story about the apocalypse, or at least how people perceive it. And it reminded me that whenever we watch apocalyptic horror or apocalyptic things from Hollywood, it usually it focuses on the negative aspects of apocalypse, that people are going to suffer and die, the world's going to end. I was reading in my Christian Century this week that there's a media theorist named Marshall McLuhan, and he was once asked whether he was optimistic or pessimistic about the future. And his insightful response reflected the conviction of his Christian faith. He says, "I'm not an optimist or a pessimist, I'm an apocalyptic." Christians have always been invited to consider apocalyptic thought as fundamentally hopeful. It is a stripping away of the lies we tell ourselves, a revealing of what is true, and then it is a call to change. It is the affirmation that we have the God-given capacity to turn our lives away from the lies and back toward the truth. And this is from an article written by Martha Tatarnic, and who is a rector of St. George's Anglican Church in Ontario, Canada. But I think that answer from that media theorist is very true. That as Christians, we are not optimistic or pessimistic, we are apocalyptic. But in the ancient sense of that word, apocalyptic, in the fact that God's truth will be revealed. Now, when you go to Revelation, or if you read the book of Daniel, we've been taught recently in the last 150 years to interpret it one way, that it's not yet happened, that God's going to return and the 4 white horses are going to come through of the apocalypse, and God's going to come back and save us all, and we're going to have the new kingdom of the new heaven and the new earth. Well, for the first 1850 years, the predominant understanding of the book of Revelation, the book of Daniel, was that it was writers and prophets who were trying to interpret the things of their day. And in fact, there's many of allusions to Rome in Revelation. Babylon, you need to read as Rome, and about all the persecutions that the Christians were going through. And the last 150 years or so, you'll have more churches who have taught a different meaning, saying that we've been in the end times, and we've seen it constantly, actually, since I've been growing up. Every 5 years it seems like somebody will tell us that the world's going to end. But Jesus tells us something in the scriptures, that there will always be wars and rumors of war, but these are not going to be the signs of God's returning kingdom, because there's always going to be signs like that. And yet we still are called to be watchful. I think, honestly, there is more of an expectation of our own death that we need to have than of the return of Jesus Christ. That we will meet God. It's going to be sooner than we think, but it's probably going to be individually as we leave this life. I'm not trying to get morbid here. I talked about death on Saturday. But what I'm going to try to talk about is, how do we allow ourselves to hear God's truth in the midst of this? I think our times are very similar to how many of us felt after September 11th, and I know I'm totally dating myself to somebody who is older than 19 years old. and probably even 24, because a lot of the little kids don't remember how we all were in those immediate times after 2001. There was a great song written by Alan Jackson called "Remember When," and and I remember there was a hope that we were going to be different, that we were going to change. But within a year and a half, we moved to a war in Afghanistan and then a war in Iraq. And we were taught to buy stuff to keep the economy going. And then the housing market collapsed and the recessions. I mean, you think about the odds. We've gone through difficult times and we've gotten through them. And I don't know what makes our current feeling seem like we're going through worse times than we were before. And for those of you who've lived longer, who lived through the 70s, or lived through the 60s, or lived through the 40s or the 30s, understand that there was difficult times in our past also. What I'm asking you to do today, though, is to know that God is still at work in this world through the Holy Spirit and through faithful people. We are called not to be optimistic, not to be pessimistic, but to continue to reveal the truth of God's coming kingdom. A kingdom that's not going to just punish the people who are wicked. I mean, we tend to focus on that. I mean, honestly, the Left Behind series is just murder porn for people who want to see people suffer. No, Christianity is about hope and about salvation, and about the promise of God's perfect kingdom coming here and among us, and us being in alignment with God. I mean, that's what we work for in our Christian life, to try to be better than we are, and to do good for others, and to love, and to demonstrate that humanity is not doomed to failure. So I challenge you today to pray and to remember of God's promise, and to remember to love and to care for others, and to work for justice, to love kindness, and to be faithful. I'm going to share with you a song today called "Be Thou My Vision." It's one of my favorite songs. I think I have to ask for it quite a bit. I ask God, show me your vision. And may it not be one just filled with darkness and sadness, and may it not be just filled one with hope that has no basis, but let it be filled with truth. Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart, not be all else to me save that thou art. Thou my best thought by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence my light. Riches I heed not, nor vain empty praise, thou mine inheritance now and always. Thou and thou only first in my heart, great God of heaven, my treasure thou art. Be thou my wisdom and thy true word, I ever with thee and thou with me, Lord. Heart of my own heart, whatever befall, still be my vision, O ruler of all. May you go in peace and have a wonderful day today.